The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Saturday, January 18th. I hope everybody is off to a great start to the weekend. And so we're going to be talking today about the first 100 days and kind of what is possible, and talk about what I think Trump is going to do, and I'll talk a little bit about, and then I'll talk about what I would do in the first 100 days. First 100 days, of course, a time where Congress and the public supposedly gives you some leeway, some freedom to maneuver, the ability maybe to pass stuff that maybe outside of the 100 days you couldn't do because it is not that popular or more difficult politically. Whether that is true or not, I do not know, but let's make the assumption. What the hell? All right, what else do we want to say? Today is tomorrow. Tomorrow is officially in Puerto Rico the end of Christmas season. I know for you guys it's already over a long time ago, but in Puerto Rico they celebrate Three Kings, and then they celebrate something called San Sebastian, and it's like a weekend, like from Thursday to Sunday. It's party 24/7. It's out in Old San Juan. The consequence of that is they basically closed all the roads leading to Old San Juan, which means all the roads outside our condo are closed off. It's a major hassle. But there are hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, in Old San Juan right now partying, and they will be there all night. Anyway, yes, Puerto Ricans have a very long Christmas season. It starts before Thanksgiving and it ends tomorrow night, Monday morning. All right. So Monday, Donald Trump will become the president of the United States. He'll be inaugurated almost certainly immediately. On his way to the party, he will sign a bunch of executive orders to get things rolling in the days following. You can expect dozens of executive orders almost a day. Rumors have it that in the first week there'll be 100 executive orders that Trump will sign. They'll be all over the place, covering everything, and most of them will be nothing more than symbolic statements of stuff, creating this group of advisors and that group of advisors and this thing or that thing. But some will be quite substantive. There certainly will be significant executive orders relating to immigration, for example, and relating to tariffs, the two things that Trump is seemingly most passionate about, immigration and tariffs. And I think those will get very early on. I think already tomorrow you'll get some kind of deportation executive order that'll go into effect immediately and will require ICE to start going into particularly blue states and blue cities and start arresting people and setting them up for deportation. It is good to remember in this context of deportation, just so people don't freak up too much, is that in Trump's first term, the 4 years, 2017 to 2021, very little deportation happened. Indeed, Obama deported more people than Trump, and Biden deported more people than Trump. Now, granted, more people came across under Biden, but Obama was pretty aggressive in deporting people. Is Trump literally going to be rounding people up and putting them in camps and making... I'm skeptical. We'll see. I mean, he could be. I think we're much more likely to see kind of an Obama level plus ramped up Obama levels of deportation rather than kind of the Kemp's scenario, 11 million people being rounded up as some people in Donald Trump's camp have suggested. So I don't think we'll get the worst case scenario from that. But it certainly will, that certainly will be one of the first things he does. Remember, a lot of what Donald Trump does, a lot of what Donald Trump says is performative. It is for show. It is to appease a particular group of people. I think another thing that will happen on Monday is there will be an official announcement on Monday that we now have the greatest economy we have ever had, that it is immediately recategorized from a really, really bad economy to a really, really good economy. Might take a few days for that one to happen, but already, people are reconsidering that. All right, let's see. The other one, of course, will be tariffs. I do expect that we'll get tariffs right off the bat pretty quickly here. It really does seem like he is committed. Again, tariffs, anti-trade is the one policy that Trump has held firm to since the 1980s. So this is going on well into 40 years. It's the one thing I think he really believes in. So I do expect to see some form of, maybe universal tariffs, or maybe a progression, or maybe starting out with some increase in tariffs across the board, ratcheting up to some higher level in the future, so that he can pretend that he's going to use this for leverage. So we will see. We will see exactly what he has in mind in terms of starting out with tariffs and in terms of launching his tariff agenda. But those two certainly will dominate. At the same time, Congress will start putting together this mother of all bills, the biggest, greatest, most amazing, beautiful, and wonderful, and stunning, and I don't know, just the greatest bill ever. And it'll be big, that will try to capture a lot of Trump's priorities. It'll include provisions, it'll include immigration provisions, primarily at the level of just allocating budget for immigration. It will also include tax provisioning, so to include the extension of the 2017 tax cuts into the future, with some changes and adaptations. We'll see. This is going to take a while to all come together. It'll also include significant spending priorities. So it'll include a budget, which will include a number of spending priorities. My guess is that there'll be a few bones thrown in the direction of Dodge. So there will be something in there around greater government efficiency, and maybe some budgets will be cut symbolically. But overall, this will be a massive spending bill, massive tax bill, a hugely deficit will be clearly. This bill will be a deficit spending bill, but it might include kind of an expansion of the president's authority vis-a-vis tariffs. I don't know whether the Trump people think they need that, but they might just throw it in there just to be safe. So give him more authority than he even has right now in terms of tariffs. I don't think it'll have explicit tariffs in there. We'll see, but I think it'll have some provisioning there. Again, on the immigration, it'll have. There will be no, and I'll make this prediction right now. Government spending under Trump every year will be higher than the previous year. Government spending under Trump will be higher than government spending under Biden. The rate of growth might slow, but government spending will not be cut. There will be a big, grand, beautiful, amazing, stunning, greatest in all of history proposal submitted by the Elon Musks of the world before the deadline, when there's the deadline sometime in 2026, that argues for a bunch of cuts and a bunch of streamlining and firing people, and some people will be fired and everything. And Trump will say, this is magnificent, this is exactly what I want, this is amazing, I love this, this is fantastic. He will send it to Congress, and it will die slowly because Trump won't fight for it, and pressure group politics will not allow it. Again, a few symbolic things will happen here and there, but government spending will be significantly higher 4 years from now than it is today. Trump will spend more money than Biden, and that is my prediction. And I'd be known to be wrong. But I'm betting that. Am I betting against Elon Musk? Absolutely. I'm betting against Elon Musk. I'm not going to tell you what I think the price of Tesla is going to be or how much money SpaceX is going to make. I'm not going to bet against against Elon Musk in business. But yeah, when it comes to politics, I'm betting against Elon Musk without a doubt. There might also be an attempt by congressional Republicans to pass or to come together around a immigration bill, a immigration bill that restricts immigration, and so it'll look very much like the bipartisan bill that was brought in front of the Senate. What was it, 9 months ago, and that Trump basically said to Republicans not to even consider. It'll look very much like that. Something like that will pass. They might even include in there some streamlining of H-1B for extraordinarily talent. I don't know. I'm not sure that could pass, but they might include something like that. But there will be some kind of restrictive immigration bill, again, very similar to the one Democrats agreed to under Biden, but that Trump would not let Republicans consider. And I think in this case, Trump will sign off on that bill. Here's what Trump mindlessness syndrome does to people. So Jones, right? Yeah, we should have elected Kamala instead. Is that your point, Yaron? No, it's not my point. My point is, this is what Trump is going to do. I didn't make any opinion about who should have been elected. All I'm saying is, Trump will spend a lot of money. You know, you like that? Great. You don't like that? Fine. I mean, why is everything about the last election? The last election is finished. Trump won. Celebrate. You've celebrated. Now let's talk about what he'll actually do and whether any of it is good. My prediction, very little will be good. Some of it will be good, but very little will be good. And when there's good, I'll mention it. But right now, my prediction for the first 90 days, for the first 100 days of his administration, most of it will be shitty. What choice did we have? I don't know. I don't care. It's over. It's finished. Why are we hashing the past? Why debate the past? We're debating the present and the future. That's what's important. The past is the past. It's over. He won. You guys got what you wanted. Yay. We're celebrating. And now we're talking about what will happen. I have no interest in rehashing who should have won the previous election because it's irrelevant. I'm not comparing to the perfect. I'm comparing to Biden. Biden was horrible, terrible, one of the worst in all of history. I'm comparing to Biden. Will Donald Trump spend more or less money than Biden? And I'm going to add, my guess, and you guys can bet against me, and we can, in 4 years, we can adjudicate this. My guess is he'll spend more. But, you know, what other predictions do you guys want? We can do other predictions. That's fine. Will he raise tariffs? Yeah, he'll raise tariffs. Will that be bad for the U.S. economy? Yes, that'll be bad for the U.S. economy. He will raise tariffs more than Biden did. Biden kept Trump's previous tariffs, raised some tariffs on batteries and I think solar panels. Trump will raise them even more. What other issues? Go for it. Whatever you guys want. Will he go to war? No, he will not go. You will not go to war. He won't exactly bring the troops home. He never has, but he's not going to go to war. He will let Iran be. He will negotiate a deal with Iran. Who else is there to go to war with? He's not going to go to war with China. All right. So that's what I think Trump will do. That's what I think he'll do in the first 100 days. I think a big focus in the first 100 days in terms of foreign policy will be a deal with Iran. I think that he is very much aware that that a deal with Russia is not in the cards for the first 100 days. So he'll probably let that one be for now. He will continue to support Ukraine in spite of everybody's hating him on that, and try to angle for some future deal with Russia. He will cut a deal. He probably day one start negotiating with the Iranians. That is foreign policy. He will put a lot of pressure on Israel to cut a deal with Hamas. I don't not think Trump wants the war in Gaza to get reignited under his watch. I don't think he wants to see a war there once phase one of the ceasefire expires. I think he'll put a lot of pressure on the Israelis to negotiate a phase two and a phase three. And I don't think he wants wars. I think part of his shtick again is no wars. Even if I have to sell out my allies, I don't want wars. All right, what would I do? And here I think it's important to note that there's a real opportunity for Trump. I mean, if he paid any attention to serious people. Oh, by the way, one of the things I do think will happen in the first 100 days, which is good, so this is the good, is I do think you will get significant movement on energy right off the bat. I think the energy people are ready, and they have a list of things they want to do. And I think they will do that very quickly. And I think on energy, that is where the best stuff will happen under Trump. And it'll happen really, really fast. So in 100 days, we'll give them cover to do a lot of things that are exciting. It'll be interesting to see, for example, whether they approve offshore drilling or not. But there's plenty of oil and natural gas onshore. So we'll see. We'll see exactly what happens. As I mentioned, Alex Epstein, who's the sponsor of the show, has a 25-point what should be done to liberate energy. You can find it on a Substack. You should go there. All right, so what would I do if it was me in terms of this? Because I do think that the first 100 days are an opportunity, particularly when there is a change from Democrat to Republican, particularly when the Republican being elected, in this case Trump, is coming in as a disruptor, as somebody who doesn't play by the rules, as somebody who might be doing things completely different, might be doing new things, exciting things, an agent of change. Well, then I would say, let's really change. Let's do major change. Let's embrace change. All right, so I'm going to go run down a few things and then open it up to your questions. I'd say let's start with tax policy, since tariffs are tax, and let me just say a few things that I think should be done and could be done on tax policy, starting on day one of a new administration. So first thing I would do on day one is I'd sign an executive order. Again, assuming you could get it, I think the president can actually do this unilaterally. I think he can. I would sign an executive order basically lowering tariffs to zero unilaterally across the entire United States on every single product that exists out there. So all products, tariffs down to zero. I would probably phase it in a little bit. Just I like giving people the opportunity to adjust so that it's not instantaneous and things get thrown off kilter. But I would say within 6 months, this one's easy and it's easy to do and it's quick. Within 6 months, all tariffs in the United States will be zero. I will be declaring the United States a free trade zone. Please bring your goods to the United States. Try to sell them here. We are open for business. Also make it incredibly easy to invest in the United States. One of the things I would immediately do is reverse the Biden administration's decision about Nippon Steel. Let Nippon Steel buy U.S. steel and encourage foreign companies to come to the United States and invest by buying U.S. companies. Unilaterally means that I would reduce tariffs coming into the United States, whether the countries that are exporting to the United States had tariffs or not, or were reducing the tariffs or not. So I would make the United States a zero tariff, unilaterally zero tariff country in the U.S. I would also immediately sign an executive order, and if not, it couldn't actually do this by executive order. I would submit a simple, straightforward, up and down vote, quick vote bill that would basically repeal the Jones Act. So the Jones Act would be a major priority for repeal. Again, all in the name of let's just simplify. Let's just get rid of the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that we don't need. We don't need borders and customs and all of that overhead. We don't need tariffs. We want to compete with the world. We want our businesses here in the United States to go into complete competition with the world. We want a free flow. I mean, I'm not quite ready to make a free flow of immigrants yet. We'll get to that in later. But I want at least a free flow of capital into the United States. It's already pretty easy to invest here. But the idea that Nippon Steel can't buy U.S. steel is a major deterrent for capital to be invested in the United States. So we want to get rid of that and reverse that on day one. So those are things, day one. Jones Act, repeal of Jones Act, reversal of Nippon Steel, and tariffs down to zero within 6 months. Then I would sit down with congressional leaders and I would encourage them to adopt a straightforward, simple tax legislation. And that is legislation that's already available in the House of Representatives. And it is the fair tax. The fair tax would basically abolish everything. The fair tax would abolish the income tax, the estate tax, the capital gains tax, the dividend tax, the corporate tax. Basically, all taxes on income, all taxes on production, all taxes on actual productive activity would be abolished immediately, within a year, over the next year. Completely abolished. All, again, income taxes, wealth taxes, all capital gains taxes, dividend taxes. Maybe most importantly, corporate taxes would be down to zero, would be eliminated completely. And by the way, as soon as you zero out the corporate tax, all these subsidies that have to do with, accelerated depreciation and you can deduct this R&D, but you can't deduct that, and you can do this and you can do that. All the attempts by the government to manipulate businesses into doing what they'd like, all that is out the window because there's no taxes from which to deduct them. So all that is out the window. So corporate tax is zero. And then I would put in place a federal state sales or VAT, value-added tax, across the board in the United States. Again, getting rid of all productive income taxes, and making the only tax in the land at the federal level a tax on consumption. And I would make it on everything. I would make it flat. And I think this is what the fair tax have. I would not have any provisions for poor people, for bread, for fruit, for vegetables. No, the taxes on everything. Everybody pays exactly the same rate. You don't want the whole bureaucracy figuring out what your income is and should you get money back or shouldn't you get money back and everything. You deal with welfare separately. The tax code is just about revenue and it's flat, and it's the same. You're worried about poor people, old people, give them money. It's better generally to write a check than to try to control prices or try to manipulate taxes or try to use the tax system to redistribute wealth. Don't use taxes for anything other than one function, and that is to bring in revenues to the government. That is the only function, not to manipulate behavior, not to control behavior, not anything. Right? By the way, doing this would not encourage states to eliminate their state taxes, income taxes, because now you'd have a whole, that bureaucracy would go away. By the way, that means shutting down the IRS, not creating an ERS, but shutting down the IRS and shutting down the ERS, right? Because tariffs would be gone, so you'd have no ERS. This is Trump's new agency for external revenue services. Shut that down, shut down the IRS. You'd save tens of billions of dollars by doing that. Again, this is at the federal level. So I'm not talking about states. States will have to do what they have to do. At the federal level, no income tax. But more importantly, no corporate tax. No dividends, capital gains, none of that. Imagine, I don't know how many of you, some of you probably make a decent living and do quite well. Think about how liberating that would be to just eliminate taxes as a concern, as something you think about. When you go to the grocery store, you buy stuff, they add the 15%, 20%, whatever it needs to be to get enough revenue so that we can balance the budget. Even if it's 25%, whatever it happens to be, you pay it there, but you do not concern yourself anyway in your actions with taxes. This, primarily the lowering the corporate tax to zero, will immediately raise wages, lower prices, because that's really how corporate taxes are paid from, and increase investment. The fact that capital gains are now zero on short-term and long-term will dramatically increase investment. And you will see, money flowing from overseas, because now it won't be have to have withholding taxes in the United States. You will see a massive, massive boon to economic growth, free of, you haven't even deregulated anything, you haven't done anything, you basically eliminated taxes, tariffs, and income taxes, and corporate taxes. That in and of itself will have such a huge increase to economic activity that somebody wanted to increase economic activity to 5 to 6%. Just that might have that kind of impact. Particularly, again, taking the corporate tax from, 21% to zero. Huge, huge, huge. And it's very workable because in most places, businesses, retailers already have the infrastructure for a state sales tax. What you have to do is overlay an infrastructure for a federal sales tax. Of course, a VAT might be better, might be easier to put in place. It's also a little bit more hidden from consumers, so maybe less honest, if you will, than a straight up sales tax. Is it workable? Absolutely. There's no economists have run the numbers. There's actually a bill in Congress that every now and then a couple of Republicans in the House of Representatives bring up for a vote or don't, because the leadership of the Republican Party won't allow it to go to a vote, and it fails, but there is a bill available. I haven't run the numbers on that particular bill to make sure that it all adds up, but it wouldn't be that hard to take that bill and tinker with it and make it workable. So step one would be that. It would be a true revolution. I would also start, as president, in my first 100 years, the process of repealing the amendment to the Constitution that made income taxes legal. And I forget which amendment that was, 16th, 19th. Anyway, repealing the amendment to the Constitution that allowed for income tax would be part of this. But even if I can't repeal it, let's get that on the books. Let people see what is possible when you stop trying to control them, manipulate them, and control and manipulate business through the system of taxation. So that is step number one, tax policy, get rid of all of that. Step two is probably the most controversial of all of them. Step two is would take on what Trump has said he would not, and what Democrats have said they would not. So step two would be to shame Democrats and Republicans into taking on immediately, the issue of entitlements and offering dramatic, substantial, significant entitlement reform. And this reform means that we would immediately reform Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Social Security might be the easiest of these to reform. Social Security is going bankrupt within about 10 years, or maybe even earlier than that. It is already negative. That is, more money goes out than comes in to the system. So it's basically being paid off through the general taxation. So the way to do this. In my view, is a few things, a few kind of tweaks that are just required in order to sustain the system, and then radical reform. The tweaks I would do is I would definitely mean test Social Security. If you make over a certain amount of money, or you're still making as you don't get it, or you get a fraction. This is just because it's not sustainable, and right now. General taxes are going to pay this. You don't have a saving account. It's not your money put aside. So I would definitely put in a means testing mechanism. One of the advantages, of course, to eliminating the income taxes. Social Security taxes are Social Security is no longer going to be taxed. Note also that by eliminating taxes, the income tax, I would also eliminate, and this is important, Medicare taxes and payroll taxes. So you will no longer be paying into this system. The system would have to be funded through general tax revenue, i.e. the consumption taxes. So I would mean test Social Security. If you make over $250,000, you don't get it. If you have X amount of wealth, maybe, you don't get it. And it would have to be phased and done in a way that doesn't penalize people too much. Second, I would change the retirement age from whatever it is today, 67 to 70 or 71. Again, this is just to buy time, just to buy some years. And then more fundamentally is that I would convert Social Security into a saving account that is I would, again, nothing is taxed here, so I would basically wouldn't convert it into saving account. So I would basically phase it out. So basically, what I would say is, if you are in your 60s, you will get everything promised, adjusted for the means testing and adjusted for the later retirement age. If you're in your 50s, you will get, 80% or 75%. If you're in your 40s, you will get 50%. And you're in your 30s, you'll get 25%. And hey, by the way, if you're 25 and older, you will get zero. And you will get zero, and as a consequence of, and that's fine because you're not paying payroll taxes anymore. So you're not putting any money supposedly aside. So something like that, pretty aggressive. So within 40 years, the system is gone. There is no Social Security. Somebody says, what about IRAs? IRAs don't exist in this world, right? Why would you want IRAs, 401ks, any of that? There are no taxes. The only reason IRAs exist is to shield you from taxes. The only reason 401k exists is to shield you from income taxes. But there are no income taxes anymore. You pay no taxes. You write no check to the government. Except when you pay for your groceries or for whatever it is that you're buying. So you get to choose how much to save and how much to consume. The more you save, the better, I think, for your own retirement, because nobody is there to bail you out. This is it. You have to save for yourself. So that would be basically the program in terms of Social Security, Medicare, Medicare and Medicaid. And Medicaid is a little tricky because Medicaid today, by law, is primarily given to the states. But I would continue to do that. Maybe I think Republicans have always wanted a block granted to the states. Just give every state a block of money to use for Medicaid, and let the states decide how they're going to use it. And I would say, okay, we've promised to do this. We will continue to do this. Here it is. But from now on, every single year, the amount of money that you are going to get is going to go down by, I don't know, not only is it not going to increase, but it's in terms of actual dollars, real dollars, not inflation adjusted, but actual real dollars. It's going to go down by 5%, 7%, some number that allows the states to adjust, because it's going to go down over a long period of time, but it starts immediately. The numbers are going to be, Medicaid is going to shrink. It's going to go down. Medicare is going to have to be part of wider healthcare reform. It's very difficult to do this independent of that. And I think the one law that I would try to get past Congress here is a law that basically federalizes health insurance and basically eliminates all regulation on health insurance. So today, health insurance is regulated at a state level. It's a disaster. The states have done a horrible job regulating this. Now, there could be a way around that. There could be a way to create a federal charter for insurance companies, and then if they abide by the federal charter, if they sign up for the federal charter, they are regulated at the federal level, not at the state level. So we can come up with creative ways to get around state regulation of health insurance policies. But basically, I want unregulated health insurance policies. I want a competition. I want a marketplace in health insurance. So that's step one. Step two is converting Medicare. Medicare is for people over 65. Into a voucher system where every old person, Medicare will stop. Within 1 year, Medicare will stop buying health services. That is, stop paying hospitals, stop buying drugs, stop paying pharmacies. It will stop all medical services. And it would instead take the money and block grant it and give it to seniors for the purpose of buying an insurance policy. That is, the money will be allocated for purchasing insurance. They get to choose what insurance. The federal government will not be involved. Maybe it'll have to be a federally chartered insurance policy where there will be massive competition for that. Today, there's something called Medicare Advantage, which is already health insurance for people who already have Medicare. This will be a massive and dramatic expansion of Medicare Advantage. But it basically will have the effect of privatizing Medicaid and subsidizing, the government subsidize. I'd rather subsidize than actually than manipulate people or actually pay producers. The most neutral thing the government can do in terms of redistribution of wealth is to write people checks and step away from buying products, from engaging in economic activity. Step away from the economy. Sony says, wouldn't it create a black market to avoid taxes like paying with cash, Bitcoin, etc.? I mean, Europe has a VAT system that works quite well. I don't think there are black markets in Europe, so I don't see why that would happen. It would Again, it would be enforced by businesses. Businesses are much easier to monitor than individuals. So at the margin, would this happen, like smuggling cigarettes into the EU in order to avoid VAT? Sure. But it is, I mean, as compared to the amount of money today that is shielded from taxes, it would be a fraction. It would be a fraction, right? A fraction. All right, so, providing vouchers for people to basically to buy health insurance, that would be Medicare, with a provision that that amount of money that they get every year to buy health insurance will decrease by 5% every year until it basically goes down to zero. So that will be entitlement. That'll be dramatic entitlement reform. Again, that will make both Social Security and Medicare viable into the future. And that will reduce government deficits in the future, reduce government debt into the future. And as a consequence of all of that, it will put the United States government on much better financial footing, which will free up dramatically capital for investment in the economy, and again, will generate significant economic growth. All right, what else are we going to do? We've done some tax policy. We've done some entitlements. Let's see. All right, let's say government spending. Let's take another piece of this. Let's take welfare reform. Let's take welfare. Today there are, I don't know, 200 different welfare programs in the United States. All kinds of welfare programs, from food stamps to income supplementation. There's a negative income tax, which would go away because there's no income tax. There's just a bunch of stuff. I think all of that should be replaced with basically a provisioning of some kind of minimum income to begin with, some kind of a check that everybody gets. That is brings them up to whatever the number is these days. So you take all those hundreds of programs, replace them with one. This one is not about holding anybody's hand. It's not about trying to manipulate their behavior. It is income supplementation. You make X amount, we'll up it to a certain other amount. And I note that if there's no that amount, the amount that you get will shrink as you make more money. You have to be careful how you do that so you don't provide a disincentive for people to work harder or for people to get raises and to go into the job. So some thinking has to go into it. It's not a UBI because there's no reason to give everybody a UBI. That seemed just like a silly way to redistribute money. You want to give the money to people who, quote, need it, and you want to figure out how to do it in a way that does not create a massive tax on them gaining extra wages. There are ways to do this. You could anyway. There are ways to do this in a clever way where the marginal taxes for making more money are not that high. Again, I'd be happy to be pretty generous in the first few years to compensate for all the changes and all the upheaval that is going on. So I think being generous with these checks is good. Also, remember, a lot is going to get privatized. So a lot of stuff that people just get for free now, they'll have to actually be paying for under my system. So I don't mind being generous to begin with, and then that amount just shrinks over time. So over the next 20 to 30 years, that amount will go to zero, but we start out with some kind of, not universal basic income, but selective basic income that replaces and has to replace basically all the other various welfare provisioning that happens out there. And again, there is a path where this number shrinks constantly. And this shows the markets. Yes, government spending will go down over the years. It's not endless deficits and endless debt, because it's going to go down, and surpluses are going to be used to pay off the debt. And then once the surpluses pay off the debt, then surplus is going to be used to cut taxes. And then that consumption tax will start going down every year as revenues exceed expenditures. Okay, so let's talk about other government spending. I think here it's pretty straightforward. Congress will have a mandate. The mandate will be to cut spending every year, to dramatically cut spending by real spending, not inflation adjusted, road of growth, just actual spending, by 5 to 10% every single year. I'll leave it to them to figure out the priorities and how to do that. But that will be the mandate, is to cut spending on a regular basis over the next 10 years. We want to cut spending, let's say 7% a year. Over 10 years, 70%, that's about right. And slowly, again, with the exception of the entitlements, which we're phasing out the way I talked about, welfare, which we're going to do the way I talked about. So everything else, right? Everything else. And maybe 7% is too much, because a lot of that is military. And while I think we can cut military spending, I don't want to do that too fast. And there might be periods in which we have to increase military spending. All right, a few executive orders that I would sign in that first week, literally in the first week. One, an executive order that basically closes down the Department of Education. And also eliminates all government lending for education, all government involvement in education. You see, what they want to do right now, when Trump talks about shutting down the Department of Education, they shut down the Department of Education, but all the things that the Department of Education does are just transferred to other departments. I want all the things that the Department of Education does not done anymore. And that includes no student loans. The government has to get out of the business immediately of issuing student loans. No grants, no scholarships to help poor people or to help rich people, to help anybody. Government gets out of the business of education. I would immediately sign executive orders implementing Alex's plan for energy abundance, and as part of that plan, have a clear agenda on shutting down the Department of Energy. Zero reason why the federal government should have a Department of Energy. Third, I would have an executive order, and I think the president could do this without Congress. I'm not sure. I would have an executive order to create a government entity, a new government entity, that will be responsible, starting immediately, with auctioning off all government lands, with the exception of military bases, active military bases, and essential government property for the functioning of government. So grazing lands, lands with natural resources, Alaskan wilderness, Wyoming wilderness, maybe with the exception for now of national parks, all land that is not a national park, that is not an essential government building, that is not a military facility, will be auctioned off. Money raised through this auction will go immediately to the payment of government debt, to a reduction in the government debt. So build an auction house inside the government, create a new government entity to auction. I mean, there are lighthouses, there are all kinds of stuff out there that the government should just sell. Just sell. Now, if we just did what I mentioned so far, there would be a boom in the U.S. economy. Quality of life, standard of living would go up so fast, you wouldn't know what hit you. You wouldn't know what hit you. There'd be so much excitement. And of course, there'd be a clamoring to come into the United States. So certainly as part of of this, I would have Congress draft a new immigration bill. Basically, you can find my immigration proposal in my show I did on immigration. That would basically scrap all immigration laws that exist today, replace them with a work visa, a student visa, and a tourist visa, and that would be it. And anybody who can get a job in the United States, anybody who has a job offer in writing, would be allowed in. And given how much I think the economy would grow as a consequence of what we've already done, I think that millions of people will want to come in to the United States, boosting economic growth even more. And then finally, and in many respects, most importantly, we want to have a clear, systematic plan for deregulating the U.S. economy. And here, we would have to take different fields like healthcare, finance and banking, energy we already talked about, but every one of these areas, and potentially education, and find, put together all the regulations that apply to that particular area of economic activity. And then basically eliminate them one by one. I think with financial regulation, a lot of that could be done just by going backwards in terms of the history of regulation, starting with maybe Dodd-Frank, and then Sarbanes-Oxley, and then going backwards through history and getting rid of the regulations one by one, all the way back to the 1930s, maybe, doing away with, something like, and here it's not the number of regulations, but doing away with substantial regulations in every one of these areas, anywhere from, let's say, 25% of the regulatory burden on each one of these industries, getting rid of them every year until the burden of regulations is down basically to zero. And do this across the whole thing, work safety. Every area in which there is substantial regulation that regulation needs to be eliminated. That regulation needs to be reversed, and reversed slowly so that industry, trade groups, workers, unions can all adapt, but eliminated nonetheless at the federal level. States, we'll deal with states later. Let's clean up the federal government, and then we can deal with the states. And that's it. That would be, and we would try to do that, as much as possible of that, at least laying out the framework for all of that within the first 100 days. It would be the hardest any senator or congressman has ever worked. It will be an administration that basically is rushing to shut down as much of government as possible. I expect that after 4 years of an administration like that, the government will be running surpluses. Government debt will have shrunk significantly. I would also expect that after 4 years like that, the economy would be growing steadily at 5+% a year, and creating massive amounts of wealth. People would be incredibly prosperous. And I think overall, as all of these government programs are slowly starting to shrink, from entitlements to welfare, resentment across society, and envy, and the spiritual values, hard to really estimate to what extent that will change the whole mood, the whole atmosphere, the whole attitude of people within the U.S. economy towards one another. I really think that spiritually we would land up with a dramatically healthier country, a country that embraces competition, embraces immigration, embraces progress, embraces technology, embraces growth, embraces ambition more than anything else. Because the economy has a feedback mechanism. It's not just that people only care about economic growth, how they're doing financially, and they look at other people doing better and they resent them. But it's all these regulations and welfare state and controls that are oppressive, and they lead people to feel oppressed and unhappy and envious, and they lead to that. So to the extent that you get rid of all those restrictions and all those constraints, then to that extent, people are going to be happier. They're just going to be happier. Put aside richer. They don't have to think about. Taxes, for example, anymore. They really don't have to think about it. They have to think how much they can afford to consume, and how much it's costing them, and how much they want to save. But taxes become a non-existent issue anymore. Just doesn't rise up. So, yeah. Exciting. Now, somebody's asking about foreign policy, so let's do my first 100 days in foreign policy. I would immediately order the Pentagon to prepare plans for the complete and utter destruction of the Iranian nuclear facilities and the complete and utter destruction of Iran's capacity to wage war. And that would mean the bombing of their missiles, of their where they store the missiles, their missile launches, the bombing of pretty much all of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard bases, and the destruction of their capacity to build drones and to build missiles for Russia or for whoever, anybody else, right? So I would definitely destroy Iran's capacity to produce nukes and basically to wage war. Beyond that, if that is not enough, I would, have Congress reverse the law that says that the United States intelligence agencies cannot assassinate foreign leaders, and I would ask the CIA and others to draft a plan and to put it into implementation to basically see a regime change in Iran and the complete collapse of the regime of the Ayatollahs. So that would be priority number one from a foreign policy perspective. Priority number two would be as part of a defense bill, to authorize the Ukrainians to use American weapons in the way that they were designed, so without any restrictions. I would also tell the Ukrainians and tell the Russians that Ukraine can expect the kind of weapons that it needs in order to push Russia out of Ukraine. So whatever weapons Ukraine deems necessary for achieving that goal, I would also encourage our generals to advise Ukraine in terms of strategy and how to beat back Russian forces out of Ukrainian territories and back onto the Russian border. So no peace deal, no negotiation from the perspective of weakness for the Ukrainians, nothing that the United States would support. And I would support them, at least for now, by some kind of mechanism with arms, military arms. I don't think they need, and I don't think we should support them economically, but I do think we should need to support them with military equipment. Most equipment, by the way, we send them is equipment that we're not going to use anyway, so it doesn't actually come out of your pocket. So that is Ukraine. China. I would basically go to China and make a few things crystal clear to the Chinese. I would tell them that the United States will not stand still and will not sit by if they attempt to invade Taiwan, that invading Taiwan is 100% unacceptable to the United States, and they should just take it off of their agenda. The United States does not want war with China. It does not want to get into any kind of conflict with China. On the other hand, it will not tolerate the fall of Taiwan. Indeed, the Chinese can expect, in my administration, that relations between the United States and Taiwan will get closer, and that there will be a recognition of Taiwan as an independent political entity, whether the Chinese like it or not. On the other hand, no interest in getting into a Cold War with China, no interest in getting into a hot war with China. Completely understand that China wants to have influence on the South China Sea. It is called the South China Sea afterwards. And as long as they are committed to maintaining open sea lanes, as long as the United States Navy can function in this area, and as long as the shipping lanes stay open, the United States has no interest in intervening in, I don't know, artificial islands that China wants to build or other things. But they stay out of Japan's way, they stay out of South Korea's way, they stay out of Taiwan's way, and most fundamentally, they stay out of the United States and the shipping lanes way. And, you know, the rest, in terms of their domain of influence in Asia, is their business and the business of other Asian countries. I would also emphasize to Chinese that to the extent that they are going to be aggressive in any kind of way, including threatening Taiwan, the United States will establish a joint, defense treaty with South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, and other Pacific countries, certainly Australia, but potentially the Philippines, maybe even Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, that will preserve open shipping lanes and so on. The United States will not intervene in internal affairs in China, but we also ultimately expect that the Chinese stop immediately hacking into U.S. computers if it is discovered that the Chinese government is behind another significant hack into computers of U.S. companies or the U.S. government. The United States will do everything in its power to fry every hard drive in China. I think that's the right technical terminology. Fry every hard drive in China. So going back to Ukraine, I think part of the deal with Ukraine is the United States should declare that it will not do any trading with Russia, that it is basically embargoing Russia, that it does not want to have any dealings with Russia, that Russia is an aggressor nation and is, in that sense, an enemy of the United States. The United States has no interest in going to war with Russia, but it has no interest in cooperating with Russia on any front. Again, as part of the pressure on Russia to cut a deal with Ukraine. Do we need anything else in foreign policy, or have we solved the problems of the world? I think we basically solved the global international problems of the world. Trade with China should continue as normal. As I said, I've already lowered tariffs to 0, so the Chinese will be happy about that. But there is, they're going to have to live with the rest of it. They're going to have to live with the rest of it. All right, there's the agenda. I don't know, radical? Yeah, it's radical. Very radical as compared to today. Disruptive? Absolutely. This is disruptive. What Trump is going to do is just going to be noise, and it'll disrupt, but in an unhealthy way. This is disruptive in a healthy way, in a way that actually will shake up the world and shake up the United States. I think the United States' best friend in a scenario like that will be Javier Milei, who is doing something similar, if a little bit more moderate, in Argentina. Oh, I haven't even gotten to getting rid of the Fed, privatizing the Federal Reserve System, going to a private banking system with private money. All of that should be included in plans for reversing financial regulations. But I think for the first 100 days, we might have to hold off on that, because before we do that, we have to deregulate the banking system. You can't privatize the Fed without a completely unregulated banking system. So we need to combine those two. Let's see. Unbelievable. All right. Yeah, you take the Free Market Revolution, my book, and you do it quickly. That's what my first 100 days are. Free Market Revolution fast. On steroids. All right. What else do we want to do? I guess that covers everything. So let's move on to our super chat. We've got a few super chats. There's room for more. Definitely room for more. We not even made it in enough for the first hour. So please consider making some contributions. Stickers maybe. Stickers would be great. If you're not a subscriber, please come and subscribe on YouTube. I know a lot of people are watching the show right now on Twitter. Please consider coming over to YouTube and subscribing to my channel. That would be great. You can also, if you're watching on Twitter, we've got 175 people watching on Twitter. You could also come in and support the show through a sticker or a super chat. But you can also support the show on Patreon, patreon.com. Just put in Yaron Brook Show, and you can become a monthly supporter. Love monthly supporters. It really is fantastic, and you make this show possible. We are $43 short of our first hour's goal for the super chat. So if somebody wants to do a $43 sticker or question, that would be fantastic. Or maybe just two $21.50 questions. That would be amazing. All right, so my 100 days, not happening, sadly. I didn't get elected. Trump did. We will be monitoring his first 100 days, and we will be monitoring what he proposes to actually do. And we will monitor the consequence of that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's going to be plenty of ugly, plenty of bad, some good, and we will be monitoring all of those. And I will, keep you updated as we go through that. All right, let's start with some of our super chat here. Liam starts us. But, you can ask about anything, by the way, what we talked about, or other stuff as well. And the nice thing is you get to decide what we're going to talk about through your questions. Liam says, you said, quote, you need to accept the incompetence, stupidity, and immorality of people. Can you elaborate? Are you saying because we live in a pre-Objectivist time, stupidity, incompetence, and immorality will be the norm we just need to navigate around? Yeah, I mean, you just have to accept reality. This is reality. We live in a world where objectivist ideals and ideas are foreign, in the smallest minority, where even people who embrace these ideas have not fully integrated into their own character and everything else. So they're not always consistent. And where a bad morality, a bad epistemology is making people more stupid than they otherwise would be, more incompetent than they otherwise would be. And that's just the way people are. And it's something that as part of accepting reality, and facts are facts, and they don't care about your feelings, you've just got to accept it and navigate around it and take that into account as you deal with reality. Try to deal as much as you can with rational people. Try to avoid as much as you can the irrationality that exists out there in the world. But that's not going to change the fact that a significant portion of the population out there is irrational. And you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. You can't stop living because they're being irrational. Thank you, Liam. $50. That was very, very generous. All right, Neo. You blame Bibi, but Israel is forced to fight in a moral way. You also say Israel can't survive without American equipment. Should Israel fight in a way that may disrupt the relationship, and if chooses to what then? I mean, this is such a false dichotomy. Yes, the world and the United States puts a lot of pressure on Israel to fight, quote, the the altruistic way. But it's not true. It's just not true. That somehow in Israel, people are not altruistic. Somehow in Israel, people would embrace rational egoism in a second, if not for America, at least when it comes to foreign policy. It's just there's no evidence of that. Israel's philosophers, Israel's intellectuals, and Israel's political and military leadership have all bought in to the altruism. The only people who don't buy into this kind of altruistic view of fighting wars are the same kind of people who don't buy into it in America. That is the religious nuts, the messianic religious nuts who don't give one iota about killing as many Palestinians as they need to. But everybody else in Israeli society is a just war theorist. They all believe in just war theory. At least the majority does, just like they do in America. And certainly an overwhelming majority of the intellectuals. So, and Bibi is no exception. It's not that Bibi is, again, a rational egoist. What can he do? He has to listen to the Americans. He doesn't believe in this. He's had multiple opportunities over the last 25 years to prove his mantle, to do something extraordinary, to stand up for Israel in a way that is a way that would show us that he is the real thing. And he hasn't. He didn't do it in Gaza for 20 years. He did a little bit of it in Lebanon, a little bit, but not consistently. It's just not true that Israel's this just haven of egoistic war fighting. It's America that ties its hands behind the back and stops them. It's just not true. Now, what would actually happen if Israel lashed out in lightning speed, killing however many Palestinians it was necessary in order to win, destroy Hamas, destroy the entire political leadership, and bring the Palestinians to the point of defeat so that they understood that they will never defeat Israel? The world would be in shock. It would be upset. It would be horrified. But Israel would have won. It won't take a lot of bombs. It wouldn't take a lot of weapons. I mean, more bombs, more weapons are used in order to fight a so-called, quote, just war than are used in order to fight a real war, a war victory. You actually use less weapons. So you wouldn't run out of weapon systems, and you would actually have won. And then America would turn around and say, we're really upset at you, but you won. And the Palestinians won a deal. And they're recognizing the state of Israel. And you won, and it's over, and oh, okay. I mean, what are they going to do? So they might penalize Israel with, you can't come to Europe, otherwise you'll be arrested or something for a few months. Or they might penalize Israel by not selling them arms for a few months, but Israel has lots of stockpiles. The American political system is such that no American politician is going to completely abandon Israel and let it die. Just tell them unequivocally, straightforwardly, you are going to do whatever is necessary to win. Close your eyes, close your ears for a couple of weeks while we finish this. And then we can talk in 2 weeks. That's what needed to be done. That's what needs to be done. Nothing bad will happen to Israel as a consequence. Everybody will get over it because they will have won. And that victory can lead to a two-state solution. It can lead to some kind of peaceful solution. It can lead to something positive. Losing never leads to anything positive. It's very clear why Bibi caved suddenly. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, boys. First of all, it wasn't sudden. Bibi was willing to do this deal over many months. It just the minutiae he wasn't willing to do, and he caved because Trump told him to. I mean, there's no mystery here why Bibi caved. Bibi caved because it's his nature to cave. It's his character to cave. He just needs somebody who's willing to push him enough. And Trump pushed him and basically said, I mean, I can see the conversation now. Basically said, look, Trump could be your best friend or could be your worst enemy. What do you want? You want it to be your best friend? You have to give him this. You have to give them this win. And then we'll talk about the rest afterwards. And Bibi said, okay. It didn't take much. One meeting. One meeting. I mean, this is what happens when you build expectations that Trump is going to be the most friendly president in all of human history to Israel. Okay, well, if he's the most friendly president in all of history to Israel and he wants a favor, how can you say no to the favor? So stop trying to whitewash Bibi. This is his character. It's always been his character. I don't understand. I really am frustrated. Bibi's been prime minister for 20 years. He has dealt with Hamas and Hezbollah over and over again. Every single time he dealt with them over those 20 years, actually, if you go back to the 90s, he dealing with the PLO, he dealt with them in a compromising, sellout, unprincipled way, which set up Israel for October 7th. So why in all of the universe would anybody still support Bibi? Put aside the latest caving. What is it that he's done over the last 25 years, 27 years, whatever it is? What is it he's done that would lead anybody to think anything positive of him? Anything positive of him? Nothing. He's done nothing. He's sold out, he's compromised, he's appeased, and he set Israel up for October 7th. And he won't recognize that and he won't resign. So he's a coward on top of everything else. He's indecisive. He's weak. I just don't, I mean, it's so clear to me. It's so obvious to me. It's so unequivocal to me. You might say there's nobody better. That is the closest you can get to justifying Bibi. So, I really, honestly, don't get the sympathy for this guy. I don't get it. I've never gotten it. Since he said he would never negotiate with terrorists and ran to negotiate with Yasser Arafat immediately afterwards. I just don't get it. He is not principled. You get, and he always has been. So you guys either want to ignore reality or you want to argue that he's changed. October 7th changed him. But he's not. He hasn't. Nothing changed. I mean, they did a great job in Lebanon for a while, for a few weeks there. I'm morally judging, but my list, my chat is supposed to be people who know about moral judgment and are okay with it, supposedly. All right. Thank you, Neil. Andrew, people don't trust the leftist politicians, the media, other institutions, but instead of an intellectual pivot, people are moving to the opposite of what the intellectuals say, which isn't rational. New intellectuals needed. Yes, absolutely, but people don't trust the right either, the right politicians, right, either. Remember, Donald Trump did not win in a landslide. He won by 1.5%, the popular vote, and he squeaked by in every one of the battleground states by a few thousand votes. He didn't win anything big time. So the country's still 50-50, basically. And 50 hates the left and 50 hates the right. And that's what it is. And, you know, right now there's a pivot away from woke and away from far left, but there's also an embrace of far right. And but even an embrace of center is like an embrace of blah, embrace of nothing, embrace of what's center? What does that mean? Biden? What is center? It's nothing. It's nothingness. And what's needed is radical change. What's needed is radical intellectual change. What's needed is radically new thinking. And that's what we're not getting. Andrew says, how do you explain that in the physical sciences we have reached the marvel of AI, and in the science of humanities we have sunk to a revival of tariffs? That science is still compartmentalized to a large extent away from the rest of the culture, away from the collectivism and the irrationality of the rest of the culture. But even AI, think about all the AI scientists who are afraid of AI, who think it's going to go conscious any day now, who have all kinds of weird stories about AI, that have no understanding of what human consciousness is, or what thinking is, and think that AI is thinking. So it's even in AI is infected by the bad philosophy. Brian says, any other dictators on your assassination list? Jong Un, wouldn't an assassination basically be a declaration of war? Yeah, but who cares, right? I mean, and who would they go to war with? The North Koreans. I mean, they can't really hurt the United States, not if we're serious, and they would hurt the South Koreans. So I wouldn't assassinate Kim Jong Un, only because that's South Korea's job, right? He's not a threat to the U.S., not a significant threat to the U.S. I wouldn't bother. It's if you weaken the Russians, weaken the Chinese, then I don't think he's a threat. Iran is a threat, and you want to stop them before they get nukes. So there you want to be more engaged, but there's no reason to get rid of Kim Jong Un that I can tell. I'm open to being argued otherwise, but so let it be South Korea's problem. Although they seem to have their own problems right now. So here's, by the way, I'm just looking at Twitter. This, by the way, is the House of Representatives just released a list of options for ways in which they're going to pay for the tax cuts, right? Here's some. A 10% tariff, which they think will increase revenue by $1.9 trillion, applied to all imports. Note again how serious they are about tariffs. This is not going away. 10% tariff, so $1.9 trillion. Your taxes just went up by 10%. Border adjustment tax. That's another tax that restrains trade and ultimately is paid for in the United States by Americans. They claim that will increase revenue by $1.2 trillion. This is kind of another consumption tax on imported goods. So this disallowed deduction on the cost of imports and eliminates taxes on exports. Yeah, I don't know exactly how it works, but it's not good. It's not it's really, really bad. Repeal SALT deduction entirely. So they would repeal the deduction on state taxes. Right now, you can deduct up to 10% at $10,000. They say that'll increase revenue by $1 trillion. It would be hard to get. Yeah, I mean, there's some senators I have a feeling would not want to vote for that. Ooh, eliminate the home mortgage interest deduction. That would increase revenue by $1 trillion, right? Currently, you're allowed to deduct interest on primary residence up to, I think, $1 million mortgage. So up to a certain amount, and subject to the minimum tax rate that you have to do. They add, eliminate non-citizens from federal health benefits. They say that'll save $35 billion. So right now, illegal aliens are eligible for some federal health care programs. This would eliminate that eligibility only for illegals or also for legal. I don't know. Repeal green energy credits. That's a good one. That supposedly will save $796 billion. So that would eliminate clean vehicle, clean energy, efficient building, and other energy credits that were introduced in the Inflation Reduction Act. They would also cut an additional green-related credits. Yeah, so there's other stuff they could also cut. That's another $400 billion. That would be good. That's all good stuff to cut. I wonder what Elon thinks about that. And the employee retention credit. That's another one where you get a credit if you don't fire people, I guess. $75 billion. That was passed in COVID to keep people from being fired during COVID. Social Security requirement for child tax credit. It's $28 billion. Tax college endowments. A tax on tax college endowments of 14%. $10 billion. That's not a lot of money. $10 billion only would apply to large endowments. And right now the tax is 1.4%, so they would multiply it by 10. Eliminate nonprofit status for hospitals. So they would convert all hospitals to for-profit, increase revenue by $260 billion, maybe. Disallow charitable deductions for health organizations. Really? That would increase $83 billion. Why not reduce disallow charitable deductions for everything? Tax scholarships and fellowship income. That's $54 billion. Tax employee-provided transportation and gym use. So they want to tax more stuff, right? I want to tax less stuff. Would increase revenue $70 billion. Eliminate deductions on student loan interest. Deny Social Security to those with felony warrants. That's $3 billion saving. What are you going to do with people with felony warrants who don't have enough money to live as old people? Just don't give them anything. Ban telehealth facility fee. Income verification for free reduced school meals. Onshore oil and gas leasing. All of these are, pretty small stuff. The main stuff is the tariff, the border tax adjustment tax, and the taking away certain deductions. Those are the big ones. But all of this is doubling up on income taxes. Doubling up on the income tax. So all this is moving as far away as possible. Neil says, I forgot to kick out the UN in our speech. That's right, I did forget. I forgot to get rid of the UN. It's such a trivial thing. But yes, day one, executive order, withdrawing the United States from the United Nations and repealing whatever lease they have for the property in New York City and encouraging them to move to Caracas or Tehran or maybe Pyongyang, maybe North Korea. All right, Not Your Average Algorithm says, why is it you don't care about the poor? It makes you a sociopath. I don't care about the poor. I care about the poor a lot. I want them to be the beneficiaries of capitalism. I can't think of a system that is more beneficial to poor people than capitalism. The poor I don't care about is the deserving poor. People who deserve to be poor, the wife-beating drunks of the world. I don't care about them, and if that makes me a sociopath, then so be it. But capitalism, I'm all about the poor. I'm all about particularly the ambitious poor. Liam, you also said on yesterday's show that most Republican voters are not that bright. I'm not sure I agree with that. Could you elaborate? Yeah, I mean, if you look at MAGA, which is, 40% of Republicans, people affiliated with MAGA are pretty stupid. They're just low intelligence. Low intelligence. You look at the MAGA influencers. These are dumb people who play to really, the left is much more sophisticated theoretically and in trying to convince people. So, MAGA is not very smart. You see them on Twitter. You see them elsewhere. I'll also add that generally, Republicans, there's a huge education gap politically. Republicans, Republicans do really, really well with people who don't complete high school. Republicans do really, really well with people who don't go to college. And I'm not saying college is this great thing. In today's world, college is incredibly corrupting. But there's something there. Republicans don't do well necessarily in the past with STEM. So I think if you ran intelligence tests on Republicans and on Democrats, Democrats would be smarter. More philosophically corrupt in many ways, but just smarter. Republicans have a hard time dealing with abstract ideas. Now, granted, all political parties, everybody in America today is not particularly smart, but conservatives are not that smart. They're not. Ben Shapiro is smart, yes, corrupt, but smart. Jordan Peterson is smart, in some way. Okay. So we've got a handful. Cool. And and it's sad. It's very sad that Ben Shapiro has embraced MAGA. But if you look at the other people on Ben Shapiro's platform, Knowles and what's the other one? Walsh. Smart? No. Those are not smart people. Those are not smart people. Anyway, it doesn't really matter because I don't. Being smart is not that crucial. It's at the end of the day, morality is what's crucial, and Republicans are far more committed to. Candace Owen is one of the dumbest people in the world. What are you talking about? Somebody's using Candace Owen, who doesn't believe in the existence of dinosaurs, as an example of smart. Tulsi Gabbard, smart? Tulsi's not smart and terrible on pretty much every dimension one can imagine. But Candace? About as bad as it gets. All right. Michael says, well, I agree with most of your criticisms of Donald Trump. I find myself wanting to defend him because I absolutely cannot stand the left. I wonder if many objectives fall into this category. Yeah, of course they do. Most people do. I did not say, you won't find anywhere that I said that every person who voted for Trump or supported Trump is not smart. I've never said that. But that's the kind of Publius, that's the kind of unthinking you suffer from because of Trump unthinking, Trump brainless syndrome, right? I said that on average, Republicans are not as smart as Democrats, that's all. And I think empirically that would stand. Did I say every single person who voted for Trump or supports Trump is not smart? I never said that. But that's what happens when you contract Trump brainless syndrome, is you stop being able to actually think. And you instinctually say stupid things in order to try to defend Trump. Michael, yeah, I get not liking the left. I get that everybody hates the left, and I get that's why a lot of people support Trump. I get it. That's fine. I stand by all my criticisms of Trump. I don't think any of them is made less valid by that fact. Hopper Campbell, how do nihilists get into positions of power? You would think by the nature of their philosophy, they wouldn't be so ambitious about climbing up the ladder. Well, it depends on the type of nihilists, how consistently nihilistic they are, and it depends on the culture. And look, some people, it doesn't take that much to climb the ladder, right? They go right to the top fairly quickly. But in a culture that has, at least to some extent, embraced nihilism, embraced envy, embraced resentment, embraced fear and hatred, then I don't think it's that hard for nihilists to rise to the top pretty quickly. Maribens, a message to Philosophy at Work. I love watching Ayn Rand. Insensate Life. Z. All right. Another one of those that I completely miss. All right. Clark, is altruism accepted only up to a point in any given culture? Yes. In any given human's life, it's only accepted up to a point. Otherwise, it is suicidal and destructive and self-destructive, to that extent, it is not ever fully embraced because it would lead to death and destruction very, very quickly. Right? Yeah. So we've talked about this many times. I think in man's mind, it's only accepted up to a point. By the way, just on Trump, did you see that he issued a Trump coin, which has no value, and it sold a gazillion, and he made a lot of money? And I mean, a day before he's inaugurated as president of the United States, or 2 days before, it's just unbelievable. The Trump coin is just another example of how low this man is, how just absolutely low he is, and how willing he is to exploit you, his fans, as much as he can. As much as he can. Millionaires were made off of the Trump coin. I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were. Michael says, one good thing about Trump being in power and the Republicans controlling both houses of Congress is Alex Epstein will become much more connected and influential over the next 4 years. I hope so. I hope so. We will be here in 4 years to evaluate what exactly turned out. But let's hope that Alex becomes even more influential over the next period. Eyal says, I hope you're wrong about Iran. So am I. I hope I'm wrong about a lot of things. Andrew, if you hold the full context, the government holding the gun to Pharma to negotiate the price of those life-saving enhancing drugs is an egregious injustice. The producers are being looted. Yes, we talked about this yesterday. It is truly horrific that we allow the government to coerce and to force and to blackmail big pharma that way. Or small pharma, it doesn't really matter. Apollo Zeus, do you expect the rest of existing government workers and politicians to go along with such radical changes? No, I mean, but who cares? They work for me. I'm president. I'll fire them if they don't want it. I'll have to fire many of them, if not most of them anyway, because that's what the changes will necessitate. What are they going to do? They're going to launch a revolution. And this is the thing, that my policies would create so much economic activity, so much job creation, that many of these government employees will be eager to leave to benefit from the riches that are being offered in the private sector. Enric, the government was central in new technologies from nuclear plants in the 50s, moon rockets in the 60s, self-driving cars. Should government continue? It shouldn't continue doing any of those things. The only reason government was central to many of those things is because it was the only player playing in that field. The government should continue to do and invest in research that is essential for national security. So all the projects that DARPA, the Defense Department funds, those should continue. But other than that, ultimately, the government should be getting out of these big research projects. And given that private individuals will now have a lot more money to invest, to save, they will be the ones investing in the kind of research that is necessary to create these big innovations. So no, government, now we should close down NASA. That would be one of my executive orders. We'll be shutting down NASA, although I think you need an act of Congress for that. And I don't know about self-driving cars, right? How much the government it was involved there. But GPS was a government creation for national security, which was then commercialized and used in the private sector to far greater extent than anybody expected. And you could imagine a lot more of that happening, but out of defense industries, not from other kind of spending. Yal says, how do U.S. executive orders work? I'm an un-American. Well, I mean, it basically is a way of, within the scope of what is allowed to the president, it is a way for the president to change policy without going through Congress. So as applies to the executive branch, there are things that a president can do. Now, the extent of those things, the scope of those things has to be determined by the Constitution and by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has generally given presidents a wide leeway, but not completely. So, for example, Biden tried to forgive a lot of student debt through executive order. And the court said, oh, you can't do that. If you want to forgive debt, it has to go through Congress. And I expect that they will do that to a lot of other executive orders. So there's a limit to how much you can get done through executive order. It has to be something where the courts believe is within your scope of responsibility, not legislative, which is what Congress is supposed to do. Andrew says, do you understand the psychology of political partisan hacks? How do they justify their insane fealty to their party? I think they rationalize it by how bad the other side is, by the need to win, by the fact that, oh no, you don't understand how good our people are. I think it's rationalization. But the psychology is tribal. It's, at the end of the day, what they need to get is a sense of belonging, a sense of being part of the tribe. Rob, is Alex not sanctioning evil by working with Trump? No, because he's not working with Trump, right? Alex was very clear, at least to me, that he did not want to work for Trump, that he did not work for the administration. He would advise the better people in the administration on things that would lead to greater freedom for all of us. So I don't think that is a sanctioning of evil. I don't think that he is going to support evil policies. He is going to prod certain people towards better policies, towards greater freedom. So no, I don't think he's sanctioning an evil. All right, let's see. I mean, there was some stickers, and I don't think I thanked you guys. Let's see. Barbara, $20. Thank you, Barbara. Jacob, thank you. Let's see. Greg, thank you. Mike, thank you. And Alan, Enric, Apollo Zeus, Gail, Jonathan Honing, Martin Anderson, an anonymous user. Thank you guys for the stickers. I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you to all the super chatters. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I'll be back tomorrow with a show in Hebrew. So for those of you Hebrew speakers, you can join me tomorrow. Those of you who are listening not live, please consider becoming Patreons. Go to patreon.com and subscribing to the Yaron Brook Show. For $10, you get the podcast ad-free. But more generally, your dollars help make this show possible, a reality. And couldn't do it without you. So thank you. And I will see you all on Monday. Oh, Monday, we're talking healthcare with Amish and Ray from AFCAM. It's going to be fabulous. It's going to be a really, really good show. We're committed over the next few months to really going through healthcare and really trying to figure out how to fix healthcare in the United States and how to change people's attitudes. So fixing healthcare in the United States would be easy. See you guys. Talk to you Monday. If you're not a Hebrew speaker, if you are, there'll be a show tomorrow. Bye, everybody.